Good morning. Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network. I'm Robert McNeely as Speaker Johnson to hold yet another shutdown presser. This press conference being brought to you by the Palestinian Senator Chuck Schumer and his buddy from New York City, Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries. The proof is in the pudding. They want to fund illegal aliens. They want to turn their back and their eyes away from the crime happening in major cities throughout this country. And that's why President Trump deploying National Guard to assist ICE agents and also state and local law enforcement in order to get the job done. Even the Chicago police superintendent putting out this week a public service announcement. Do not barricade, do not get in front of those law enforcement officials, because they will have the right to use action to protect themselves, to protect the citizens, and to protect the peace. So a very good one, as well as we've seen very ridiculous videos of paid agitators literally turning their targets and their crosshairs towards those seeking to enforce the law. But cut number two, Mr. Producer, people in Chicago are quite fed up with what's happened, and both Republican and Democrat failed leadership in the city of Chicago and the collar counties. It's been going on for years. The license for bribe scandals dating back to a Republican governor, George Ryan, landed him in hot water, ultimately jail, for when he was Secretary of State, offering undocumented illegal aliens licenses, that sadly ending up in a crash that killed a pastor's family back in the 90s. That then continued with Rod Blagojevich, who recently admitted it was a mistake for him to grant undocumented illegal aliens those driver's license when he was governor, and recently stating on another network that the President of the United States was elected on a mandate, and he's following through with that mandate from the American people. But cut number two, Mr. Producer, this is the kind of person, a resident of the city of Chicago, speaking truth to power that most of the legacy media would simply just ignore.
Black people in Chicago, let's get this clear for the record so nobody is confused, right? In 2020 and 2021, when Democrats, specifically Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, flooded Chicago with the illegal, undocumented criminal invaders, y'all didn't have nothing to say about that. Right? When the mayor, Lori Lightfoot, gave them benefits, millions, prepaid EBT cards with $10,000 on it, prepaid Visa cards, 6 months worth of free rent, free health care, free child care. Y'all were okay with that. And then you all continue to be okay with it by going out and voting for Kamala Harris to continue what she was doing with the open borders, right? Now that ICE is there to actually do something about it, right? With Trump's mandate, now you all are boohoo, whining and crying, complaining that ICE is coming to black neighborhoods. What the hell is wrong with y'all? Where else are they supposed to go when that's where y'all allowed them to go? You see, Democrats didn't put these illegals in Oak Brook or Oak Park or Evanston, in any of the white neighborhoods, yet you got the white liberals downtown protesting to keep those people there because they know that they're in black neighborhoods. And y'all goofy. Y'all falling for this. Y'all voted for Kamala Harris, and now y'all are protesting ICE coming to black neighborhoods to remove these criminal invaders. Y'all are calling ICE racist for coming to the black neighborhoods. Well, why are they coming to the black neighborhoods? Because that's where you all allowed them to go. So tell me you a goofy Democrat plantation slave without telling me you a goofy Democrat plantation slave.
The question in media, the question in public service is what is happening on the ground, and do you have the ability to talk to the people that are right there experiencing this nonsense that's happening because of Democrat leadership, because of people who want open borders, because they are big government socialists. Yes, they have the communist siren sound, and we'll break that all down as so many wins continue to happen in the face of tyranny and evil coming from a far left ideology that has simply failed the Western world. Now, the Jerusalem Post, putting up post 3, Mr. Producer, this is their front cover of President Trump with the first phase of the peace deal between Israel, Gaza, and a newfound day in the Middle East. Over 3,000 years of this tribalism and warfare. President Trump bringing it to the end. And I would echo colleagues throughout the media world who have said that, including former Speaker Newt Gingrich, President Donald Trump has now put himself into the likes of people in history, FDR, Winston Churchill, the peacemakers. He's part of that legacy. Sadly, he was not awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. I think he should have been, but perhaps next year it would be rather worthy and acceptable for the 45th and 47th President of the United States to receive that award from Oslo, Norway. Not to take anything away from the opposition leader in Venezuela, who is doing great work trying to bring freedom to her country. And at CPAC, we were able to interview yet even another freedom movement, and our thoughts and prayers with those who continue to fight in South America, around the world, for constitutional governance. Something we've had to fight so hard here for in nearly 250 years of our great country. Now, getting the hostages back, a recap video, cut number 4, Mr. Producer, really an amazing deal. We saw the whisper in the ear nearly 24 years ago in September, when Andrew Card, the chief of staff to George W. Bush, whispered, "A second plane has struck the World Trade Center. America is at war." And so much of radical Islamic terrorism, that idea then becoming rather familiar to us in households throughout America, was no longer a distant issue as it might have been in the past. Then a very similar whisper just the other day as Antifa was being analyzed by brave citizen journalists, many of who have been in the hospital, like Andy Nago, or taken a black eye, like Katie Daviscourt, all exposing what's actually happening in Portland, Oregon, Seattle, Washington, and other big cities that tolerate these far-left agitators. And that whisper came in as President Trump was graciously interrupted by Secretary of State Marco Rubio saying that it looks like we have the first phase of the deal. Two very different whispers, one leading to war, the other leading to peace, in a monumental moment. Those are the moments you truly reflect upon in this business and say, wow, it's history in the front row. And that's what we saw this week as cut 4, getting the hostages back, a recap video from yesterday.
As you know, last night we reached a momentous breakthrough in the Middle East, something that people said was never going to be done. We ended the war in Gaza and really, on a much bigger basis, created peace. And I think it's going to be a lasting peace, hopefully an everlasting peace. Peace in the Middle East. We secured the release of all of the remaining hostages, and they should be released on Monday or Tuesday. Getting them is a complicated process. I'd rather not tell you what they have to do to get them. There are places you don't want to be, but we are getting the hostages back on Tuesday, Monday or Tuesday, and that'll be a day of joy.
So we have a government shutdown. We have potential peace in the Middle East, looking as if the hostages, the 48 remaining, will return home come Monday on Christopher Columbus Day. What a wonderful day to celebrate freedom in so many corners of the world, on top of the illegal immigration facing these major cities and the falsehoods and the lies being spewed by people like Governor J.B. Pritzker and Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson. He truly should be ashamed of himself. And I think the voters of Chicago will see that and ultimately select someone else peacefully and patriotically. With a force of 150 police officers protecting him and the First Lady of Chicago, taking away resources from the blue. It's really remarkable. And then we'll claim that President Trump is somehow trying to incite a civil war. His words, not mine. As we look to cut number 5, Ray's FBI, Mr. Producer. Unbelievable to find out that on January 6th, Christopher Wray really following in the footsteps of his successor, James Comey, who pleaded not guilty this week to all the FBI agents who were forced by Christopher Wray to go to the Capitol on the afternoon of January 6th and then risk their careers to blow the whistle about the political bias and abuses they witnessed. I want to thank you for your courage and assure you that now you have a director in Kash Patel and Attorney General Pam Bondi who are stamping out political bias from the Bureau and the Department of Justice and making sure that agents pursue criminals without regard to their political stripe. Just the evidence. Keep up the good work. And no, this is not a revenge tour as others have put it. This is simply following the law. As Tish James, now potentially in trouble for mortgage fraud, the same claim she made against President Trump and the Trump Organization and Don Jr. and Eric Trump, a person who's been perhaps subpoenaed more than anyone else over the course of human history, running on a theme of, I'm going to get Trump. And she might just be guilty of what she was claiming the president of the United States was guilty of. But that's what's wonderful about what James Comey and Letitia James will face. You're innocent before proven guilty. There's liberty and justice for all in this nation, and they will experience that peacefully and patriotically. And the late, great one, the godfather of this new media movement in so many ways, Rush Limbaugh really hit it on the head when he looked back into James Comey and his career. Because when you're in law enforcement, when you're at the DOJ, running for attorney general, running for county sheriff even, and whether you have to have that designation of Republican or Democrat, it really does not matter. It's about following the letter of the law within the executive branch of Article 2 to do justice and to protect American citizens, period. It literally goes back to the preamble of our Constitution. For the general posterity and the general welfare, the common defense, and tranquility in this nation. So cut number one, Mr. Producer. Rush Limbaugh truly calling it out and speaking truth.
How many of you have thought, if you've thought about it, how many of you have heard or thought that James Comey was a lifelong Republican? I have. I've always thought that James Comey was a lifelong Republican. I've been told that James Comey is a lifelong Republican. Turns out not to be true. Are you aware that James Comey used to be a communist? In a 2003 interview with New York Magazine, James Comey said before voting for Jimmy Carter in 1980, he'd been a communist. He admitted, I'd moved from communist to whatever I am now. Now, we know that John Brennan, Obama's CIA director, was a communist, or at least had voted for the Communist Party. But I had never heard this about Comey. Now we find out that under Obama, the CIA director and the FBI director both had histories of not just flirtation, but serious immersion into communism. And like the KGB always said, no one ever leaves the KGB. Nobody ever leaves this way of thinking.
I think of Rush Limbaugh and Charlie Kirk up in heaven, smiling down and blessing us on this gorgeous day in the federal city. You can see that sun peeking out over the east wing of the White House on a very calm and steady day. Not many high winds there, as we could see Old Glory on full display, grander than ever before, on the north and south lawns of the White House, as First Lady Melania Trump will make an announcement at 11 o'clock this morning. So stay tuned for that. Always great to hear from our illustrious First Lady and her Hooyah Navy chants the other day, just on Sunday. It's been an amazing week in America as we continue to pursue the truth and bring you this unbridled access to your government you put into place on November 5th of last year to make America safe again, to make America wealthy again, and ultimately to make America great again. And great indeed is this beginning of the golden era. Cut 7, Mr. Producer. Ambassador Mike Huckabee is someone not to be forgotten in these peace negotiations. United States Ambassador Mike Huckabee is amazing, the ambassador to Israel. He worked so hard and did so much to bring peace in the Middle East. He has very quickly become a great man. Thank you, Mike. And in many ways, if I can disagree for a moment with the president, I see where he's going there. Mike Huckabee, always a great man. Did you know when Mike Huckabee was elected in 1994, one of the first Republicans to win statewide, and when Bill Clinton was governor of Arkansas, the Democrats had dominated other constitutional offices in the former Dixiecrat South for countless years, going back to Jim Crow. Really, the 1990s into 2000, it's been... That's actually the big switch that people talk to you about Goldwater and Nixon and, that insidious big switch that took place, and somehow Republicans were pro-slavery and pro-Jim Crow, as some in various history books like to project their own version and take on that history, which is nothing could be further from the truth. And we could do a whole show on that, perhaps in the future, for Voice of Reason. But in 1994, upon Mike Huckabee becoming lieutenant governor of Arkansas, did you know they literally shut his door in with extra wood planks and nails? His staff could not get in on their first day when he was lieutenant governor because of how bitter the Democrats were when he first got elected. But this Baptist minister continued to turn his eyes and focus on God, family, and country. And he's become a household name, especially in MAGA politics, and someone who is an extraordinary person in the American ethos, and perhaps better than ever, even as an extraordinary governor for Arkansas. Now his superb daughter taking on that role as a successor. He's been a remarkable ambassador to the people of Israel and to fighting for peace in the Middle East as a Bible-believing Christian. Another Christian man, Ben Carson, cut number 6, receiving his second Presidential Medal of Freedom, now from President Trump. The first was from President Bush in 2008 for his gifted hands work as the first neurosurgeon to separate those conjoined twins. And perhaps you heard the story, read his book, Gifted Hands, but also a movie starring Cuba Gooding Jr. Dr. Ben Carson will be an incredible national nutrition advisor for the United States Department of Agriculture. I will soon be awarding Dr. Carson the Presidential Medal of Freedom. He is a true American patriot who cares deeply for the people of our country and never stops working to protect and strengthen life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness for all. Congratulations, Ben. And there's probably no better person to emulate if you're looking to seek going into public service than someone like a Ben Carson, who does it with such humility, such grace, walking with the Holy Spirit. We see a live shot there of Congress, the House of Representatives. You've gotten familiar with that hall and that room. My personal favorite portrait of America's father, the first president of the United States. And as King Charles III aptly put it in that state dinner at Windsor Castle with President Trump and our First Lady, that rebel commander, as he put it. Really enjoyed that as the King, His Majesty, paying homage to the United States of America, and vice versa, as President Trump raising a glass to the United Kingdom, a partnership that has stood the test of time. So all of this happening in the news, a big week of news here on this Friday at 9:49 Eastern. How are we to look at all this by the numbers? Because politicos like yours truly, those who appreciate history and trends, especially in political battle, you have to look at where the numbers are going. We could rapid fire these, Mr. Producer, but from cut number 8 through 16, voter registration really going in the direction of Republicans is because of amazing people like Scott Pressler. You might know New Hampshire, change in party registration. This is based on the 2024 election. It's up nearly 11,000 Republicans. It's a lot in a short period of time. California up over 173,000. And actually, that's a fun fact. Republicans have the most of the voters are in California. It's just they have to deal with Democrats there. up over 50,000 in the Garden State. As it continues with Arizona, State 48, over 36,000 up since then. Since September, an additional 2,500. New Mexico, 23,000 approximately since 2024. North Carolina, the Tar Heel State, my favorite on the campaign trail, almost 94,000 since 2024. Iowa, a key state for the future of this country, close to 22,000 since 2024. Pennsylvania, that's where Scott Pressler does so much of his great grassroots activism, nearly 118,000 since 2024. Florida, the free sunshine state, wow, 266,000 approximately since the 2024 election, almost 25,000 since September of this year. It's October 10th, my friends, and almost 25,000 more registered in Florida. Perhaps if I was living down there, I'd say we're full, but it's clearly become an amazing place to live, work, raise a family under the leadership of Governor Ron DeSantis, as Speaker Johnson will hold a shutdown press conference at the top of the hour. We look forward to all of that, but wow, what numbers. And you can credit people like Scott Pressler, the Republican Party, Trump Force 47, for putting the groundwork together and actually learning how to community organize once again, to knock on those doors, to make those phone calls, actually get to know your neighbors, host those parties, host those functions, and learn their concerns. And one of those concerns being healthcare costs. There's no question about that, as this has been a focal point of this government shutdown. Here's the problem. Whether it's Oregon, Illinois, California, to New York, other states as well, going against even Obamacare legislation and the letter of the law, and funding public and private entities giving health care to illegal aliens. And more often than not, it's your Medicare, Medicaid, your Social Security, the things you put into the system and should be receiving as retirees, going to fund these pet projects of the Democrats. And they like to fearmonger. I'd like to say that no one will be taken care of in a hospital in America. Again, nothing can be further from the truth. It's actually written into the law, as House Speaker Johnson addressed just Wednesday and again yesterday. That's a good law. No hospital will turn anyone away regardless of that insurance stance when it is an emergency regarding insurance status. Here's the problem. The Republicans passed a clean CR out of the House. The Senate then filibustered it. It was a 55-45 vote. This is not a process of reconciliation. They want to keep standards on their side of the Senate, and they have the right to do that, some rules being different in our bicameral legislature. But the House did its job. They passed a clean CR for 7 weeks, but the Palestinian Senator, Chuck Schumer, Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries of New York City want to defund rural health care. They want to fund illegal alien benefits. It was written into the letter of the CR. So their talking points will be Republicans don't want to negotiate in good faith. But that translates to either you do it as we will do this, as we want it, or we will shut the government down. It's a very Machiavellian approach, and they could care less how many people suffer in the process. And sometimes you can only point to a good faith claim or simply that this is what the other side has advocated for. But they actually wrote it into the CR that was then not agreed to, that then was removed into a clean continuing resolution passed by House Republicans and some moderate Democrats. You have to give credit where credit's due, joining House Speaker Mike Johnson and Republican leadership to get this done for the American people. So as we look forward to that, the press coming in, and they've been very much on time. Let's take a quick commercial break for sponsors and come right back to us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. Don't you change that dial. Hey, it's Friday. It's always a pleasure to be with you right here at the Live Desk.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network. your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
I'm excited to announce that we're having our biggest 3-in-1 sale ever with a limited edition product, a back-in-stock special, and a closeout deal you won't find anywhere else. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get our MyPillow bed sheets only $29.88. Any color, any style, any size, even kings. Regular $119.98, only $29.88. Once they're gone for good. How about our My Towels? They're finally back in stock, but not for long. Get a 6-piece My Towel set, regular $69.98, now only $39.98. And for the first time and the only time ever, get our limited edition premium My Pillows. They're made with Giza cotton and designer gusset. Queen $17.98, Kings only $19.98. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get the best offers ever. Quantities are extremely limited, so order now.
Every once in a while, something big happens, something that changes everything. And now, in a defining moment for crypto, Trump Media Group and Crypto.com are joining forces to acquire up to $6.4 billion of CRO, launching America's first ever CRO treasury, empowering the Kronos blockchain. This is more than a partnership. It's the future of finance built in America. For more, visit Crypto.com, where millions trade CRO every day.
Welcome back to Right Side Broadcasting Network. Speaker Johnson holding a press conference on the shutdown very soon, as we've seen him nearly on a daily basis now in that very ornate room there at the U.S. Capitol. And someone who is working so hard. And there have been voices out there claiming that this is on him and not on the other side. And sadly, voices from Republican ranks and Democrat ranks, which I was confused by some of those voices claiming that this is House Speaker Mike Johnson's fault, or even Senator John Thune. If it is, show me the proof in the pudding. I assume that Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries will continue to spin the narrative, as Mike Lawler, the congressman from New York, bravely approached House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries peacefully and patriotically and said, you can put your name to this clean CR. What's there that you're opposed to? And he actually said he had the gall to say to his fellow New York congressman, shut your mouth. That's the way Hakeem Jeffries talks to people. It's the way Hakeem Jeffries perceives things. Either you're in lockstep. He learned a lot from Nancy Pelosi, apparently, where you do as he says, or otherwise you will be punished. You'll be removed from committees. You will have your funding pulled. Hey, he might not even come out and do a fundraiser for you. Although I don't know who would want to go to a fundraiser these days unless you're part of that Hollywood ring of left-wing lunatics to spend an evening with Nancy Pelosi and Hakeem Jeffries. I'd be worried she'd have too many cocktails before she gave her speech. But I mean, I just might be one who I'm observing from the distance. What do I know? But Speaker Johnson will be holding a shutdown press conference very soon as his leadership walks in there. Really a great team when you look at Tom Emmer and also Miss McClain of the Wolverine State of Michigan, Steve Scalise, the leader of the House, the majority leader, all doing a phenomenal job articulating what is happening there in Washington, D.C., working around the clock to reopen this government because you have TSA agents going to work without paycheck, some of them waiting on those paychecks every couple of weeks, and many asking the questions as to how am I going to support my family in this process. So I think the Democrats would have some humanity in this, but we've seen this entire year from them throwing spaghetti at the wall, trying to find a messaging mission, and that clearly falling on deaf ears from the American people. And that's why you saw the numbers we just showed you. Republican registrations going through the roof from New Hampshire to California to North Carolina, down in Florida, of course, where many Republicans now call home, moving to the free sunshine state of Florida, but even New Mexico, what has been a very blue state for a period of time, turning now to Republican registration. And the Keystone State, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, Scott Pressler teaching us a thing or two about those registrations and being bold and finding the votes and speaking to your neighbors and breaking bread with those through Trump Force 47. It taught people to community organize. And it's not that hard. You just reach out to your neighbor. You have them over for dinner. You have tea, whatever it is, a couple of guys over for a football game. Grab a couple of beers and talk politics and life. It's really not that uncomfortable. But I think it's that preconceived notion in our head. As conservatives, we want to go out and build. We want to create businesses. We don't want to necessarily bother people with religion and politics, although that may be some of the most interesting topics that we adhere to on the right side of history. I think we've learned now how to be bold, how to be brave and all that. Also, how not to exit a friendship or a relationship simply based on a philosophical difference, a religious difference, a political difference, or even a disagreement on one specific issue. Because where's the spice in life when you remove yourself from those high-quality educational topics? But again, I'm kind of a political nerd, a historical nerd. I love this stuff. I love the idea of how this country came together, nearly 250 years young at 10:02 Eastern. We look forward to the Speaker, Mike Johnson, and House Republican leadership to take the stage there momentarily as their press staff puts together the presentation that will be on this Friday, October 10th, 2025 at 7:02 on the West Coast. Good morning, America, and good morning or good afternoon to all of you around the world who might be watching from your neck of the woods. Thank you to allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN, your go-to online pharmacy. Ivermectin mebendazole now 25% off. Also code RSBN10. Been running that for a few weeks here. On your entire order, an additional 10% off. Now, ivermectin mebendazole, it's being found that they can help with cancer, especially ivermectin, known for parasite removal, but also studies coming out that it can help with cancer diagnoses. We know that $60 million being funded in the free sunshine state of Florida for that specific research. So grab a hold of these generic medications that are affordable, that can actually make a difference, because President Trump has put forward right to try. Favorization status as well with developing drugs back here in America, the pharmaceuticals, and places like Pfizer. It's shocking that they're actually cooperating in these public-private partnerships to make healthcare costs more affordable through prescription medications. But this online pharmacy on top of it, as we go to Speaker Johnson and House Republican leadership on Capitol Hill, be sure to visit allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN as we go live there now to Washington, D.C.
Welcome, everyone. Day 10 of the Democrat government shutdown. We're not in a good mood here in the Capitol. It's a somber day. Today marks the first day federal workers across America will receive a partial paycheck thanks to Democrats' obstruction to the system here. This is the last paycheck that 700,000 federal workers will see until Washington Democrats decide to do their job and reopen the government. Starting next week, American service members, many of whom live paycheck to paycheck, are going to miss a full paycheck. If Democrats don't end this shutdown by Monday, then that October 15th date will pass us by. You've got millions of American families who will now have to figure out how to make their mortgage, how to cover their rent, pay the car note, keep food on the table, because Democrats Chuck Schumer and his colleagues in the Senate are here playing games. Republicans have voted over and over to end this madness and reopen the federal government. We did our job. By way of reminder, the House passed a clean, nonpartisan CR 3 weeks ago today to keep the government funded and, by extension, to pay our troops and TSA agents and Border Patrol agents and air traffic controllers and the rest of our federal workforce. We had that vote 3 weeks ago. And since then, Senate Democrats have voted repeatedly to keep the government closed. In the Senate, they have now voted 7 times to block paychecks for 2 million federal civilian workers and 1.3 million active duty military men and women. Now, I want to be very specific so that everybody in America can clearly cut through the obstruction and understand exactly who is to blame for this chaos. In fact, would you bring me that chart just real quick? I just want to point this out. Let's just make clear. This is the votes to pay troops and federal workers, okay? This is the number of times that the vote has been done. September 10th, the GOP in the House voted to pay the troops and pay all these federal workers. The Senate did it on September 19th, September 30th, again on October 1st, and 3rd, and 6th, and the 8th, and the 9th. Every single time the Republicans voted to pay the troops and federal workers, and every single time the Democrats voted not to. That is the record. They'll continue to put this bill on the floor. It'll be on the floor again next week in the Senate. And we'll see how many times they want people to go without paychecks. The Republicans are not playing games here. We sent a very clean, simple CR. You see this. Thank you so much for that. We are doing the job and making sure that the American people are taken care of. But judging by their behavior right now, the Democrats don't appear to be in any rush to end this pain. There's some headlines I brought you this morning. I just want you to hear what's being said about this. CNN headline from yesterday, quote, Democrats say even missed paychecks for U.S. troops won't be enough to end the shutdown alone. For many of them, this is about showing a fight to President Trump. They have to show a fight against Republicans so they can appease who? The far left base of their party. It is shameful. And for what? Chuck Schumer, the architect of this shutdown, is trying to bow to the Marxist wing of his party. You heard him yesterday. He said in his own words, every day of the shutdown, he said, quote, gets better for us. Better for who, Chuck? For the Democrats in the Senate? So you can bow to the Marxist base and not get a challenge? Here's another headline from Politico yesterday. Quote, Chuck Schumer's critics are satisfied. Yeah, the far left base of the party is satisfied. They don't mind. The troops go without pay and civilian workers are furloughed. They don't care. Former DNC chair David Hogg, he heaped praise on Chuck Schumer as well. This is what Chuck Schumer was after. This is what he desires. The praise from the far left. David Hogg said, quote, give credit where credit's due. This is a big step up. A big step up. While you're delaying flights, while you're making people go through this pain. The co-founder of the far left group Indivisible said this yesterday publicly, quote, Chuck Schumer hasn't surrendered yet. I call that progress. There's one inescapable fact. It's a glaring fact that everybody in America can see. Chuck Schumer is hurting real Americans for his own political survival. I'm going to say that again. Chuck Schumer is hurting real Americans for his own political survival. If you're a service member who's not getting a paycheck, it's because Chuck Schumer has to appease the Marxist. Cut and simple. It's plain and simple. Shame on you, Chuck. Every Senate Democrat who's going along with this, you lack the moral fortitude to do the right thing. This is the first time in history, the first time in the history of the United States Congress, that a party has shut down the government over a clean CR. We frankly didn't expect this. We sent over a no-frills 24-page document to keep the lights on, keep Congress working, to keep the paychecks flowing. And they stopped it because they're afraid of the far left. I'm just going to walk through a quick sample of the devastating impacts that Americans are feeling as we speak right here, because this is real. And you'll note a theme here. A lot of these are blue states where their Senate Democrats are over here keeping the government closed. In California, home of the nation's largest civilian workforce, more than 250,000 federal workers are now working without pay. Both the Democrat senators, Padilla and Schiff, have now voted 7 times to block those paychecks. In Virginia, there are 189,000 federal employees, nearly 5% of the state's workforce, that are waiting on their next full paycheck. And both of their senators, Warner and Kaine, refused to pass a clean bipartisan CR that Democrats supported 13 times under Joe Biden in the previous 4 years. In Maryland, Maryland is a hub of trade and commerce. You have 150,000 federal workers there. Both of their senators, also Brooks and Van Hollen, have voted 7 times to keep the government closed. In Georgia, home to our nation's busiest airport, there's close to 110,000 federal workers, including thousands of TSA agents and air traffic controllers, now being forced to work without pay. You guessed it. Senators Ossoff and Warnock voted to block those paychecks too. Arizona, 58,000 workers serve the federal government, including many Border Patrol agents who are working hard to keep us safe. That hasn't stopped Arizona Senators Kelly and Gallego from blocking funding 7 times for the paychecks for their own constituents. In fact, they have so much idle time, they're having publicity stunts, posing publicity stunts outside my office. In New York, let's talk about New York because this is interesting. It's the home to both of the Democrat leaders, both in the Senate and the House. 115,000 federal workers are waiting on Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer and Kristen Gillibrand to come to their senses and end this shutdown. Chuck Schumer said himself, with every day of the shutdown gets better for us. And what does that look like? We're talking about 2 million civilian workers, 1.3 million active duty service members, everybody being hurt because of it. Chuck is what they're doing right now. I've been asked many times in interviews the last couple of days, you seem angry. You don't get angry a lot. I don't, but this is beyond the pale. What Chuck Schumer's doing right now it's sickening. It's sickening to hear him say it's better for him and his party when it's so terrible for real Americans. Millions of people are experiencing real pain because of these political games. And you'd think after 44 years in Congress, Chuck Schumer would know better. But it seems apparent now that he spent too long in Washington to understand the real pain of real people. We're going to share a few more things with you about this morning and to talk about some of the real-world impacts on federal law enforcement. We've asked our House Committee Chairman, the Chairman of our House Administration Committee, Brian Stile, to come and talk a little bit more about that. So, Chairman Stile, thanks for being here.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for your leadership. Chuck Schumer yesterday said every day gets better for the Democrats. That's certainly not true for the men and women in blue. Today is the first day that the men and women of law enforcement here in the United States Capitol, U.S. Capitol Police, are not receiving pay that they earned since the beginning of the Chuck Schumer shutdown. As this continues, the chaos and consequences of the Schumer shutdown continue to build. Yet the men and women in law enforcement are asked to go out and serve and protect us every day. Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries will maintain a security detail, men and women that aren't being paid because of Democrats' decision to shut down the federal government. I chair the Committee on House Administration and work closely with the men and women of the United States Capitol Police, and they're suffering the consequences of the Schumer shutdown today. It's particularly concerning at a period of time when political violence is on the rise. Senate Democrats have voted to shut down the federal government 7 times. That's 7 times to defund our police. I'd ask Chuck Schumer if it's getting better for the men and women of Border Patrol who are on the border securing the United States of America. I'd ask him if it's getting better for the United States Marshals who are doing incredibly dangerous work on behalf of our country in every state. I'd ask him if it's getting better for the United States Secret Service, who's protecting the President of the United States. Chuck Schumer has put politics over people. It's getting better for his politics, he thinks. It's not better for the people of the United States of America. We should be standing with the men and women of law enforcement who are doing their job to protect us. And I think it's incredibly unfair and unjust that the men and women of Capitol Police have not received the money that they earned since the start of the Chuck Schumer shutdown. With that, I want to introduce our leader, Steve Scalise.
Well, thank you, Chairman Stile. And as the Speaker pointed out, too, it's disgraceful that not only are we in this shutdown because Chuck Schumer is only concerned about appeasing the most radical elements of his base. But time and time again, 7 times now, you've had other Senate Democrats join in with him to keep the government closed. And they're feeling some pressure, but what they're trying to do now, both Democrats in the House and Senate, is trying to shift the blame away. While they're voting to shut the government down, they're trying to blame other people. Let's be clear, and the Speaker showed it. We've had actual votes on the House floor to keep the government open. We've had those same votes on the Senate floor. You can see who has been voting to pay our troops, who has been voting to pay our TSA agents, our Border Patrol agents, and who are those people that are voting to shut it down, to deny pay to our troops. It's crystal clear. And you can go see the voice votes, the record votes. Members of Congress, House and Senate, have actually cast votes over and over again on whether they want to keep it open or shut it down. You don't have to wonder about a blame game. Gee whiz, both sides are blaming the other side. Just go look at the votes. There have been actual votes in the House and the Senate, 8 different times now, between the 2 chambers to open the government down. And Republicans have said, yes, let's keep the government open while we negotiate our differences. And Democrats continue to say no so they can appease their radical base. And so as Chuck Schumer denies pay to millions of federal workers, we know roughly at least 1 in 3 of every service member in America lives paycheck to paycheck. Now, should they get solace in knowing that they're risking their lives, some of them overseas, while their families are here, and on Monday, when we get to the date where paychecks would be cut, the government will still be shut down, and they won't even be getting a paycheck on the 15th. Rent will still be due, mortgages will still be due, car notes will still be due for those service members risking their life. Should they take solace in knowing that at least it's a good day for Chuck Schumer? At least Chuck Schumer feels like the shutdown's working good for Schumer. That's not going to give solace to any of those families. Instead, it actually increases the anger of the families all across America who are seeing the real cost of this shutdown. They know who's voting to shut the government down, but now they're feeling direct pain. And the only thing they hear from Democrat leaders that keep voting no is, oh, it's a good day for us because the far left is patting us on the back. Do they really need a participation trophy to feel good about themselves while they inflict pain on millions of people? It's disgraceful. And as the Speaker pointed out this morning, one of the other things that's being reported now is that one of the dates it looks like they're holding the government hostage over is the 18th of the month, where they're having this Hate America rally in Washington. And Democrats want to keep the government shut down to show all of those people that are going to come here and express their hatred towards this country that they're fighting President Trump, that they're keeping the government closed as if it's something to be proud of. They ought to be ashamed. If they had any shame, they would come back, they would open up the government, and then we can negotiate our differences, which are very, very large on a lot of these issues. But in the meantime, we all know who's doing this. The votes are crystal clear. The public can go see who's voting to keep the government open, who's voting to shut it down. Chuck Schumer and his Democrat colleagues who are doing this need to look themselves in the mirror and start working for the American people instead of being so concerned about appeasing their far left radical base. With that, our whip, Tom Emmer.
I'm going to go back to Chuck's words again. Quote, every day gets better for us. You reopen the government and we lose our leverage. The point of this shutdown is not just suffering for suffering's sake, but to make a point. These are actual quotes from Chuck Schumer and Senate Democrats over the last week. You don't have to take our word for what their motivations are in shutting down the government. They are spelling it out for you and all of us. This is about one thing and one thing only: to score political points with the terrorist wing of their party which is set to hold, as Leader Scalise just commented on, a Hate America rally in D.C. next week. And they've forced military families, air traffic controllers, Border Patrol agents, farmers, veterans, TSA agents, and federal workers to pay the price. We're now on day 10 of the Democrat shutdown. Senate Democrats, including Senator Tina Smith in my home state of Minnesota, have had 7 opportunities to reopen the government, but they've refused every single time. Consequently, Americans across the country are experiencing flight delays. In a matter of mere days, 11,000 Minnesota National Guardsmen won't get paid. Federal workers are being forced to figure out how they're going to put food on the table for their families, just so the Democrats can maintain their leverage to make a point. It's despicable, it's disgusting, and it should be disqualifying. With election season right around the corner, I hope every single American is taking note. Republicans have done our job. Democrats, on the other hand, are only here to play politics, and they're willing to hang their constituents out to dry to do it. And with that, I'll turn it back to our Speaker.
Thank you, Whip Emmer. Take a few questions this morning. Yeah, Jaguar.
I know your position about saying it was on the Senate. They have to take our bill that would reopen the government. But haven't the circumstances changed? And because there's a dire emergency, as Mr. Stano talks about the Capitol Police, we all talked about the military, to say we should do something different here. We're still going to apply our pressure on the Senate, but you know, if you're in the middle of a ball game and the strategy changes, you're behind, or somebody gets hurt or something like that, the coach calls in different play. Why not call in a different play right now?
Well, the ball game analogy doesn't fit here because we weren't playing a game. We sent over a clean CR, and I've explained this many times. If there was some Republican priority or poison pill or gimmick or trick or something that I could pull off the CR in order to negotiate with Democrats, I would have already done it. It's not there. When I say we're operating in good faith, I mean it. We sent over a totally clean measure that they had already voted for before. In fact, that Chuck Schumer gave impassioned speeches as recently as March of this year. The same instrument, the same one that he said was the right thing to do and that it must be done so Americans don't feel harm. He said that earlier this year. So we sent him the same instrument, hoping, of course, believing that they would do what has always been done here and pass a clean CR. And they didn't. So I don't have anything to negotiate. There's nothing more for me to do. I literally don't have a card that I can take off the deck because we did it all in good faith. They're the ones politicizing this. They're trying to play a game. We're not engaging in a game. We're trying to get the government open again so that people can be served, and it's plain and simple. Yes, sir.
To Chad's question, though, hasn't the state of play changed here, though? Isn't it perhaps the responsible thing to do to pass some kind of legislation, to pay troops, to pay federal...
We did that. We passed the bill. We have voted 8 times. Republicans have voted 8 times to pay the troops, to pay the civilian workforce, to pay TSA agents, Border Patrol, air traffic controllers, and all the rest. We've done it. The Democrats have voted no every time. There is no other instrument to do it. It's called a CR to keep the lights on and the doors open so that Congress can do its work, so that, as the Leader Scalise said, so that we can do all the rest of the negotiation and deliberation on all these other issues. Open the government, Democrats. That's what this is. We have voted so many times to pay the troops. We've already done it. We did it in the House 3 weeks ago. The ball is in the court of Senate Democrats right now. That's it. Yes, ma'am.
In terms of strategy, if you could speak to your strategy on keeping the House out in their districts and any idea when they may come back.
This is not a strategy call to keep the House working in their districts right now. There's an urgent necessity of it. We had a conference call yesterday with House Republicans. They're fanned out across the country. They're in their districts trying to help their constituents because so many of them are now struggling because of the Democrats' games. So they're helping, for example, rural hospitals to access the funds that we got signed into law July 4th, $50 billion rural hospital fund, so they can provide for health care for their constituents. They need to know how to navigate that before Chuck Schumer and the Democrats try to take it away. Their counterproposal CR would spend $1.5 trillion and take away the $50 billion that we passed into law just on July 4th, signed into law by President Trump, to prop up rural hospitals. Who cares about health care here? Okay, our members are out working diligently in their districts serving their constituents right now. We will come back here and get back to legislative session as soon as the Senate Democrats turn the lights back on. That's the fact. That's where we are. Yes, ma'am.
On the military pay, though, in past shutdowns, there have been ways to guarantee that members of the military get paid. There are over 100 Republicans in your caucus who have signed on to a standalone bill to pay these military members. So at what point do you
every single Republican is not just talking about paying troops. We have already had those votes. We have done that. We did it 3 weeks ago. The executive branch, the president, is working on ways that he may have as well to ensure that troops are paid. The Republican Party stands for paying the troops. The Democrats are the ones that are demonstrating over and over and over now 8 times that they don't want troops to be paid. This could not be any simpler than it is. Look at the record. Don't listen to what these Democrat politicians are saying up here. Look at how they're voting and demand that they do the right thing. That is where we are, and that's where it'll be. Yes, ma'am.
I actually have a question for Whip Emmer. Mr. Emmer, I know the White House announced last week that they were going to rescind $7.5 billion in green energy funds. They went to a number of states. It includes your district, however. Excel Energy Services is on the line to lose $7 million if this funding is rescinded. What conversations have you had with the White House about this, and what is your expectation for this funding? Is it truly gone, or is there some way to get it back?
Well, this is going to affect the Speaker, this is going to affect the Leader, this is going to affect our Chairman, Representative Stile, and all of our members. Literally, this could end today. If Chuck Schumer and Democrats would reopen the government, this wouldn't be an issue. And what's happened is the White House has to make some very serious and difficult decisions as to what's essential and what's not. If you want to end it, Chuck Schumer, reopen the government.
So, sir, your understanding is the White House will continue with that funding when the government reopens?
I would suggest that you call Tina Smith and ask her why she wants to keep the government shut down and put all this at risk.
Is there a breaking point, like 2 paychecks missed, 3 paychecks, 4 paychecks, where you all change your strategy and say we're going to bring House Republicans back and negotiate before the government's reopened?
I would like you to ask that identical question to Chuck Schumer. We have done the work in the House. We are awaiting them to do theirs. This is a 2-body, 2-chamber legislative body. Okay? The House did its work. The House and Senate Republicans have repeatedly affirmed that. You saw the chart. 8 times now, they have voted to get the government open and get troops paid and federal civilian workers paid. Democrats have dug their heels in and said, no, 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 over and over. They're the ones blocking the checks, not Republicans. All these questions should be directed to them and not to us. That is how this works. Thank you all for being here.
So it becomes the same broken record, not provided to you by House leadership on the Republican side, but rather the Democrats, because they don't care about the American people. It's as easy as walking outside and looking at that glorious photo of the White House. Is the grass green? Is the sky blue? Do the Democrats hate the American people? All the above answered yes. As we thank Monetary Gold for their wealth preservation securities here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. It's all about grabbing the presidential complimentary gold guide today. Call today. Don't delay. Ask how you can eliminate your IRA fees permanently for life. RSBN4thegold.com. It's 888-617-7994. 888-617-7994. RSBN4thegold.com. Robert Kiyosaki warning us this year, 2 banks failing in this beginning of the second term of President Trump, roughly 250 or so days into the second term of this administration. Nearly 500 failing under Barack Hussein Obama's tenure. So what are you to do when it comes to diversifying your assets, your properties, even perhaps crypto, or that paper money that can be inflated? With $37 trillion in debt, gold and silver really not just a hot commodity or a privilege to have, but a necessity in an economy, in a world where we're seeing a weakened dollar. And even though all these tariffs and these renegotiations of global trade happening under this phenomenal president, what are you to do to protect retirement and also pensions, everything you've worked hard for? It's Monetary Gold. They are the best in the business. Gold and silver, a hot commodity for 5,000 plus years of human history. Get yours at rsbnforthegold.com. Now there's kalshi.com/RSBN. Will Bitcoin hit that $150,000 mark? And when will that happen? Make your trades and bets today. Will Andrew Cuomo become the next New York City mayor in his own version of a political comeback? I'm sure you might have seen this week Eric Trump and Chris Cuomo having some fireworks in regards to the lawfare that has existed against the Trump family, against the Cuomo family. It does not matter necessarily Republican or Democrat. If you go against the status quo that exists, they will, like the Palestinian senator Chuck Schumer mentioned, come at you 6 ways from Sunday in the intelligence community. And now the investigators are becoming the investigated. So trade on anything on kalshi.com/RSBN, including the Fall Classic. Who will win the World Series? It's underway right now with the NLDS, ALDS, some teams shaping up in the championship series in respective leagues. Did you see my Cubs last night? Oh, my goodness. We're still in this. So we'll see what happens Saturday night in Game 5 between the Milwaukee Brewers and the Chicago Cubs. So tune in for that and trade on anything at kalshi.com/RSBN. Also, thank you for supporting us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, angelpaste.com, the miracle cream that is the vitamin B infused, non-GMO, no chemicals. Also, hundreds of options to go on their website. They're Christian-owned. They're out of Spring, Texas, off the Gulf of America, with their orange option. Vitamin C infused, great this time of year as the temperature changes. It was a brisk morning, 61 degrees as the sun was rising right here in the loveliest village on the plains, Auburn, Alabama. But with that cooler fall weather, it means dry skin. So a great option that's healthy for you. No chemicals, none GMO, not all those ridiculous amounts of dyes and chemicals that you can find in other lotions. Also a facial spray, so you get to paint the town red, whether it's that first date or 50th anniversary celebration. Angel Paste has you covered. So the miracle that is out of Spring, Texas is angelpaste.com. Thank you for sponsoring us on the right side of history. As we wish everyone of Norwegian ancestry, I have a slight amount of that, a happy Leif Erikson Day that was yesterday, and President Trump writing that proclamation. We may have time to read that on the show today. Also a proclamation for Monday, happy Columbus Day, especially to Italian Americans who suffered so much at the hands of former mayor, now Harvard University visiting lecturer Lori Lightfoot, otherwise known as Beetlejuice, who saw to it that the lawless, that the invaders ripped down via Antifa and the illegal aliens, the Christopher Columbus statue that was adorned in the city of Chicago. That meant a lot for Italian immigrants who did it legally, who came here the right way, came at the turn of the century for a better way of life. And we will continue to have this ongoing dialogue, but it's not the whatever they want to call it day from the far left. It's Christopher Columbus Day. It's Leif Erikson Day, and the people who were bold and brave enough to explore the New World and to bring Christianity to this part of the world. And yes, you have to analyze history through the lens of putting yourself in those people's shoes at that time. There was good, there was bad, there was the ugly. There were also those who perpetrated assaults upon them. So that's the problem with woke. It's the willfully only acknowledging or turning your back on known evils. That's what really woke stands for. And as Bill Maher, of all people, put it, a liberal comedian, that the problem with woke is that you could take 2025 standards and put that into any element of history and then say, I could do it better. I would know how to do it better in that time. But going back to 1492, as far as I'm concerned, I'm a proud knight of Columbus. I think Christopher Columbus is a great explorer, a great man for Western civilization, for the Christian world, and someone worth celebrating, especially for Italian Americans and for the Norwegian Americans. Again, happy Leif Erikson Day being celebrated yesterday. Both of those proclamations signed by President Trump, as the First Lady, Melania Trump, will make an announcement at 11 this morning. So moments from now, stay tuned for that. We'll take a quick commercial break here at Right Side Broadcasting Network for the sponsors. Stick with us here. Don't change that dial. Hey, it's Friday. Pleasure to be with you.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from the Diamond and Silk Chit Chat live show. Look, don't forget to check me out right here on RSBN Network. Be sure to watch the show on Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. Yes, it's imperative that you do so, okay? I look to see y'all soon. Bye-bye.
Tired of being told no by your doctor, your pharmacy, or worse, your insurance company? You're not alone. Millions of Americans are waking up to a broken healthcare system. That's why more and more people are turning to All Family Pharmacy. We believe in medical freedom. We deliver the prescription and the medication, all from licensed U.S. doctors and pharmacists, from ivermectin and trusted antibiotics to maintenance medications, even NAD+, the revolutionary anti-aging supplement. Use code RSBN10 at checkout for 10% off your first.
So as we covered this week, Antifa is running wild in Portland. We saw that with the fake news claiming it's not, but that roundtable really gave people an opportunity to see what those brave journalists are doing there right on the ground. People right, left, and center, not necessarily those with an agenda or an ideology, just simply covering what's actually happening on the ground. That's kind of journalism 101, as it should be. But the fake news ignores Antifa violence and residents' plea for help, as the White House sharing that for years, Antifa-led hellfire has turned Portland into a wasteland of firebombs, beatings, and brazen attacks on federal officers and property. Yet the fake news remains in shameful denial about the radical left's reign of terror. That's why, as President Trump mobilizes the federal resources to safeguard the lives and property of countless citizens and residents of Portland, Oregon, the White House hosting just this Wednesday the fearless independent journalists who have long risked their own lives and safety to shine a light on Portland's chaos. And a Portland resident stating that 115 days of hell, that's what it's like. I can only come out during the day. You see all the black-covered Antifa people out here. They come at night. In the daytime, it's all these little old senior people that think they're changing the world before they pass from this earth. So something law enforcement can handle. At times, they're not allowed to do their job. And you actually have these brave individuals like Andy Nago, Katie Daviscourt, to Savannah Hernandez, Nick Sorter, to countless others who are actually doing the job of what legacy media should be doing. But we remember what happened in Wisconsin. Brian Steele's district. He's succeeded former Speaker Paul Ryan. And what happened in Kenosha, Wisconsin during the Summer of Love. Remember that one reporter looking back saying, oh, it's mostly peaceful, but the buildings behind him were literally on fire. So nothing to see here. But we're thankful to those brave individuals who take their positions very seriously as the Schumer shutdown continues to taunt Americans as Democrats ignore them. The White House releasing that Chuck Schumer's disgusting claim that every day gets better, to quote the Palestinian senator from New York, is a sickening display of elitist indifference as the Democrat shutdown plunges hardworking Americans into anxiety, despair, financial ruin. His arrogance lays bare as the Democrats' sick betrayal of service members missing their paychecks, families turning to food pantries to survive, and small business teetering on the brink. It was all displayed right there. for the press conference with House Speaker Johnson and Republican leadership. Louisiana, Minnesota, and Wisconsin represented respectively today between the House Speaker, the Majority Leader, the Whip, and ultimately the Chairman, Mr. Steele, from the 1st District of Wisconsin. Thank you to covepure.com/RSBN. Drink pure, live pure. You may remember Flint, Michigan, the failure of the Republican-led state government, but then the local municipality of Flint that had lead pipes pouring into the water system, infrastructure not handled in hundreds of years, or older than your grandparents. I mean, that's what we're talking about here. Fluoride, pesticides, agricultural runoff, to hormone-disrupting blockers such as birth control, all getting into the water. And if you drink the tap on a regular basis, it can make you sick. It can lead to cancer, liver disease, stomach lining issues. And JAMA Pediatrics finding that students drinking out of the tap water more than once a day can remove 2 points in their IQ, if not more. So protect what matters most. It's covepure.com/RSBN. Scan that QR code there now. It's the size of a coffee maker. I'm sure you have one on your kitchen counter. So this is a great reverse osmosis machine with the Clearwave technology that's really at the top of their game. So I highly recommend this to use at covepure.com/RSBN. Truly your go-to for all things clean and pure water. Drink pure, live pure. Get $200 off as Secretary Kennedy seeks to make America healthy again. This is probably one of the best ways to do that right at home. Let's be clear, the cryptocurrency is not going anywhere. It's here to stay. And this exciting new announcement from Trump Media Group, responsible for Truth Social, teaming up with Crypto.com in this historic movement for a CRO, $6.4 billion in the making. This deal with Yorkville Acquisition Group brings together Crypto.com and also Trump Media, the crypto platform trusted by millions of users worldwide. They're teaming up to scoop up this $6.4 billion deal to establish America's first CRO treasury. Trump Media CRO strategy is getting this done with a new company all focused on diversification. Now, cryptocurrency continues to gain traction, and this is the biggest announcement in this realm of American life. So I implore you today, get involved with this. Visit crypto.com to find how you could be part of this amazing deal, a historic moment between Trump Media Group, responsible for Truth Social, now getting into the crypto space thanks to the Yorkville Acquisition Group. An exciting time as we continue to thank our sponsors here on the right side of history. Comet. It's a new AI-powered browser from Perplexity. Unlock 1 month free of Rumble Premium. Browse at the speed of thought with Comet. pplx.ai/RSBN. That's where you visit for all of that. And think about it this way. If you're looking at a web browser, you're searching, you're scanning, you're booking, you're doing all of these things, would it not be nice to have a personal assistant right in that web browser that could do just that for you? So instead of minutes or hours of typing, of scrolling, of research, this can actually book a reservation for you, get all of that done, send that information to your business partner, and then it's hassle and stress-free. So say you're going to Austin, Texas next week. You want to find the best Tex-Mex in a once great city. It's extremely liberal, but lots to do there in the heartbeat of the Lone Star State. And your business partner, John, is halfway around the world getting other deals done for your new startup. So you have the tech conference in Austin, Texas, and you want to find the best restaurant. Why not put it in the hands of Perplexity, this AI-powered browser that makes a lot more sense than wasting too much time and then getting stressed out about the entire process. So again, Perplexity granting you Comet along with unlocking 1 month free of Rumble Premium. It's actually been fun. I've been kind of goofing around with it myself to see what we can find out there. pplx.ai/RSBN. Have a personal assistant in your web browser to like, scroll, subscribe, share, book, manage any reservation as you would. Save time and energy. Thank you to Perplexity, the newest sponsor here. at Right Side Broadcasting Network. We're a quarter to First Lady Melania Trump making an announcement at 11 a.m. We don't always see her in her role as First Lady, so it's been nice to have her out and about a lot this past week, to see her in the prime time, whether it be Sunday night saying "Hoo-yah Navy" to celebrate 250 years of naval dominance on the seas, as that birthday comes up on Monday. Happy birthday, Navy. With a big win last week, the Naval Academy over Air Force, 34-31. So we look forward to seeing the First Lady coming up here momentarily. And then there's also what's happening in the news with this government shutdown to peace in the Middle East. Also, Letitia James and James Comey. The far left claiming that it's retribution, but we know that these people are very likely to have broken the law. Many of the laws in which they actually blamed President Trump and his family for allegedly doing. But we know the 91 felony counts coming from Letitia James to Fannie Willis in Georgia to what happened in Washington, D.C. These people, these DAs and attorneys general meeting with the auto pen based on White House logs, all the way back to Russia, and the hoax that came from a dirty Steele dossier in the Hillary Clinton campaign that spied on the Trump Tower during 2016. These aren't right-wing talking points. It's simply what's happened over the course of this last decade as a private citizen pursued the idea of making America great again. That wasn't part of their game plan on the far left. The globalist bureaucracy that's in place in our federal government was not thrilled about that, and that included elected Republicans, elected Democrats, to the powers that be within your federal city. And what a relief it has been. That curtain really has been pulled back, and countless people coming to this Republican movement through making America great again. And it's seen in the registrations across the board. As we showed earlier on the broadcast, hundreds of thousands of Americans turning to the Republican Party, whether it's New Hampshire to North Carolina, Florida, all the way out to California. Huge registrations. As you can see there, nearly 11,000 since the 2024 election in New Hampshire. California, 174,000. You might ask, why is that? They have the most Republicans of any other state in the country because of how large it is. They're just dominated 2-3 with Democrats. Also, the Tar Heel states seeing that energy as a result of what happened in 2024, all the way up to the Keystone State of Pennsylvania. Scott Presler leading those charges. Arizona, State 48, nearly 2,500 since 2025, September. Same in New Mexico, right next door, 1,500 in roughly, it's October 10th. This is September where we're getting these numbers. And, of course, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, up near 118,000. And then Florida just blowing it out of the water. We know all the Republicans are moving down there. 25,000 approximately since September. That's a staggering number in a state that Governor Ron DeSantis won by, I believe, 0.02 percentage points. I need to double check that. It was under 1%. I mean, it was extraordinarily close against the mayor of Tallahassee, who was very far to the left. And surprise on this Friday, it's Ashley Brassfield from the Daily Caller, Capitol Hill correspondent. And Ashley, we're seeing all these friends of ours in the media seemingly having repeat questions, as it's almost like Groundhog Day every day on Capitol Hill with House Speaker, who is standing firm. And I have to say, I really like his version of angry. Mike Johnson truly is my spirit animal, because when I'm angry, it's rare, but that Irish temper Italian attitude comes out. Mike Johnson is much more reserved. So if he's upset, I want to strive to be more like Mike Johnson.
Yeah, a lot of lawmakers on the Hill angry this week, especially during that hearing with Lindsey Graham, hearing that he was on the list of 8 senators that was being surveilled by the FBI. So it's good to see a little bit of fury coming from some senators and some Congress members on the Hill in general, especially from leadership in this case, with military members on the track to not receive a paycheck, of course, on the 15th. So a lot going on here. And of course, kind of same old with the rhetoric right now with the shutdown, but consistency, that's the thing.
Give us an update on Jay Jones. He's the Attorney General candidate in the Commonwealth of Virginia because for us politicos, just roughly 3 weeks from now, big elections in New York City, New Jersey, and the Commonwealth of Virginia. But Abigail Spanberger, correct me if I'm wrong, has not really condemned these comments or really wants to acknowledge them, given that she's running for governor. But you have Jay Jones, who has threatened state legislators and delegates, as they call them in Virginia, on the other side of the aisle. He's apologized for those, but it doesn't seem like he's going to step down from the race.
Right. Well, the gubernatorial debate was actually happening last night between Winsome Sears and Abigail Spanberger, the two gubernatorial candidates in Virginia and Norfolk yesterday. And, directly asked, Spanberger basically said she did not answer if she'd still endorse him or wouldn't. So, basically avoiding the question, a non-answer in a lot of ways from Spanberger, of course, calling the text messages disgusting and abhorrent and, stating that they were not right and she would not send them. But at the same time, still basically not, chastising Jones by not endorsing him. And really, in a lot of ways, in my opinion, there's not a lot to lose within this political race if she were to do that. So it is kind of astounding that she did not do that. Of course, those clips are going viral currently on X. And of course, Winsome Sears kind of stole the moment there, looking directly at her as Spanberger was not looking at her at all, looking straight forward at the camera. So definitely one of those races that, you can't take your eyes off of right now. And of course, Jay Jones and Jason Miyares, the current incumbent Republican Attorney General, having their debate next week. So lots to keep up with.
It takes no extra talent, Ashley, to be a decent human being during those debates, even regardless of your opponent. I can remember back to even a John McCain moment with in the 2008 race with Barack Obama, and someone rather fiery with the mic saying, he's a Muslim. And in turn, it seemed as if that person's opinion was because he thought of a belief system that had shaped the former president when he was a senator, that disqualified him. John McCain grabbed that mic to his credit and said, he's a good man. I don't want to go there. And that was, I think, actually really standing up and standing broad in that moment to be decent in the debate. And we hear this lecturing from the left often, but we've seen a pattern of this ridiculous rhetoric. So you have this rally for the Virginia gubernatorial candidate, Miss Abigail Spanberger, and an individual with a sign that said, if you don't want transgender people in your bathroom, why don't we remove blacks from the water fountain, hearkening back to the Jim Crow South and the Dixiecrat policies, and to hold that up against Miss Winsome Sears, Lieutenant Governor, who might become the first Jamaican American, first of black ancestry to be the governor and first female governor of Virginia. She's making history. Why would you not want that if you are on the far left?
Right. Well, I think Winsome Sears really did hold Abigail Spanberger's feet to the fire last night, in case the moderators did not. But the moderators went back to Spanberger and gave her multiple attempts last night to clarify her answers, even specifically on the transgender issue, allowing transgender biological males that turn transgender into female bathrooms, as well as women's sports. So multiple moments where Spanberger had the opportunity to clarify, not to mention she's had a week to prepare for this debate to give an answer on the Jay Jones issue specifically, and didn't. But, Spanberger, going back to the fact that she's a public servant and a mother to 3 children, I believe, which is kind of incredible, the answer that she's not able to give with the transgender issue specifically, even with the text messages from Jay Jones saying that he would like to murder the children of the former Speaker of the House that's a Republican in Virginia. So multiple opportunities, and I think a failure on her part. Sears seemed to, do her part in making sure that it was very clear what Spanberger thought.
It's these politicians need to leave family members out of this dialogue and debate, because there's really no room for that when you're seeking public office. And there's also, we see this characteristic of Hakeem Jeffries, the minority leader, being approached peacefully and patriotically by his fellow Congressman Mike Lawler of the Empire State, and said, why aren't you endorsing Mr. Mamdani in New York City. So another good question, as these people are trying to distance themselves from the Marxist left, including Chuck Schumer, who's trying to appease his base, but as you said, Ashley, willing to allow people who keep the water running, who keep the lights on, who work hard as TSA agents to our military, and even police officers, federal police officers, and our ICE agents in these dangerous cities who may not or already not being receiving that paycheck. But some of these Congress people are, and we're thankful to those who are not taking the check, including Senator Ted Cruz right now, to try to save some of that money. So for legal purposes, I'm hearing that domination, that's what I'll call them, domination, voting has begun, but you actually might have met with someone involved in all that. What's going on with these machines? Any updates on paper balloting?
Yeah, well, a guy named Scott Leonbecker, I want to say is his last name. I might have butchered that a bit, but he basically bought this company yesterday. The announcement came out. And of course, we know all the scandal around Dominion voting system, the lawsuits involved with a bunch of people like Rudy Giuliani, Mike Lindell, Newsmax, Fox News, all these other media outlets in the conservative realm that had to battle all these lawsuits, and some of them settling. But part of that deal was that, they would have to be dropped in order for this company to be, acquired by this guy. He's from Missouri. He started his own election company. He's a former GOP election poll worker, so spent a lot of time there. So has an experience looking at that. But I think obviously the question is, how can we trust this guy, especially after everything that he's done? He told me specifically that they plan to 100% onshore the company to the United States. So I think that's a good step forward. But of course, questions remaining as to what type of transparency Americans can get going into what Dominion looked like, the coding, the technology behind it, because we didn't get a lot of insight. And of course, I would say it reflected on the past election, presidential election in many states. So it's going to be quite interesting, I think, going forward. It's definitely one of those stories that you saw and your eyes got big when you heard it. So.
And thank you for covering it, Ashley, because sadly, some legacy items not even addressing this breaking news, but that's why we're happy to have you right there. And Georgia Secretary of State candidate Kelvin King speaking on this, really the entire ethos of his campaign being that there should be some form of paper trail with paper balloting, or even the machines. We should be able to go back in case there's these close elections, as we've seen, whether it be local, state, or federal. I'm up against a hard break with the First Lady coming on board to give some comments, but we're always happy to have you. Ashley Brassfield of the Daily Caller, you have yourself a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you again soon on the right side of history.
Yes, it's an honor. Thank you.
And as we await the First Lady to give some comments today, wow, it's been a big week of news here in the good old U.S. of A. And that right from the White House in the welcoming narthex, if you will, the north side, the north portico, where people are greeted, whether it be diplomats to changing administrations. That's a very ornate spot right there that goes into the Blue Room through those doors right there at the White House. We'll hear from the First Lady momentarily on an announcement. Thank you to allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. $60 million going into research in the free sunshine state of Florida. So what are you to do to find those life-saving generics? Well, do not fear. Ivermectin, mebendazole, now 25% off through your go-to online pharmacy. Allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN and code RSBN10 for an extra 10% off. Scan that QR code there now for those deals. They also have NAD Plus and Methylene Blue, can handle sleep, Alzheimer's, dementia, among other things, because Big Pharma doesn't want you to have access to these generics. They don't make a lot of money off of them. So why not go around their system and have that right to try? Allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Scan that QR code there now. Running on a very short basis here, 25% off ivermectin, mebendazole, also code RSBN10 for an extra 10% off. Thank you to Monetary Gold. It's wealth security, it's preservation. Grab that complimentary presidential gold guide today. 888-617-7994. Call today. Don't delay. You can find out how you can eliminate these IRA fees permanently for life. RSBNforthegold.com. Do not allow any more banks to fail. And granted, it's out of your control, but you can respond to it with diversifying your assets and your retirement, your pensions, everything you worked hard for. Save some of that for tangible metals, gold, silver, and even platinums. You can find all of that there in the Presidential Gold Guide with number 45 and 47 adorning the front cover. No obligation. Just a great way to look at options if you're trying to buy a house or create generational wealth for your family. It's all right there, rsbnforthegold.com. Thank you for your sponsorship here on the right side of history. It's monetary gold, wealth preservation, and security. As we continue our coverage today, we also like to thank Mr. Producer, that sponsor one more time. Oh, mypillow.com/RSBN. Near and dear to my heart. The 6-piece towel set back in stock. Normally goes for $70, 70, now under $40, $39.98. This is a very limited quantity. It goes fast. We know President Trump has said about Mike Lindell, he's the master marketer. mypillow.com/RSBN. Call today. Do not delay. 800-836-7566. Support Mike Lindell and Right Side Broadcasting Network right here at mypillow.com/RSBN. You know it's an easy code, as it looks like they're doing a quick mic check for the First Lady as we await comments from her today on Friday, October 10th. We hope you're having a wonderful start to Fun Day Friday. Tell us what you'll do this weekend in the good old US of A in your neck of the woods. Feedback at rsbn.tv. We read everything, the good, the bad, the ugly, everything in between. And I always appreciate your feedback from the good American people. You who put this government into place. You can tap yourself on the shoulder as we approach the 1-year anniversary of Election Day last year. And I know for those in New York City to the Garden State of New Jersey and the Commonwealth of Virginia, you have another one right around the corner in order to continue making this country great again. And how do you do that? Well, it's God, family, country. It's going out there, getting married, having kids, but also serving God in your own personal vocation and what you do on a daily basis. So that's my challenge for this weekend. As I normally say, how can you make your neck of the woods better as you go into the weekend? What's one or two things you can do? As we have footage of President Trump's departure, I believe we could toss that there now as we soon await the First Lady Melania Trump to make an announcement.
Mr. President.
An extremely rare moment, President Trump not taking questions on the South Lawn. That's something you don't often see. But the peacemaker in chief has a lot of checked boxes going into this weekend as Marine One departs from the South Lawn of the White House, which means wheels up, it's the weekend. But First Lady Melania Trump to give an announcement before all of those celebrations. Anticipated for that on Monday, the release of the hostages. We'll see now, does Hamas go back on its word? It has in the past. If you look back historically to 1948, these major peace accords with the Palestinian Liberation Organization under Yasser Arafat and other leaders have failed at times because it is the Palestinians and now Hamas running them roughly for the last 20 years, last 2 decades, who go back on their word or continue to fire rockets, as many of them hold the belief that a world without Israel is what's best. You've heard their chants. You heard it in New York City on October 7th, that clearly a radical lunatic, and I would consider the person a foreign terrorist, calling for from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. What that interprets into is that they do not want any Jews in their homeland. They want to eliminate any sort of Zionist thought. or anything attributed to the Jewish people. It's one of the most anti-Semitic statements one can make. And wherever you stand on the issue of Israel and this war, you could focus on knowing what's true there. Let's toss there now to the White House, the First Lady coming from the Blue Room at the White House.
Good morning. Good morning. A child's soul knows no borders, no flags. We must foster a future for our children, which is rich with potential, security, and complete with free will. A world where dreams will be realized rather than faded by war. Much has unfolded since President Putin received my letter last August. He responded in writing, signaling a willingness to engage with me directly and outlining details regarding the Ukrainian children residing in Russia. And since then, President Putin and I have had an open channel of communication regarding the welfare of these children. For the past 3 months, both sides have participated in several back-channel meetings and calls, all in good faith. We have agreed to cooperate with each other for the benefit of all people involved in this war. My representative has been working directly with President Putin's team to ensure the safe reunification of children with their families between Russia and Ukraine. In fact, 8 children have been rejoined with their families during the past 24 hours. Each child has lived in turmoil because of the war in Ukraine. 3 were separated from their parents and displaced to the Russian Federation because of frontline fighting. The other 5 were separated from family members across borders because of the conflict, including one young girl who has now been reunited from Ukraine to Russia. I have learned a lot about this matter during the past 3 months. Russia has demonstrated a willingness to disclose objective and detailed information reflective for the current situation. The Russian Federation provided biographies and photographs of each child involved in this week's reunification, along with an overview of the social, medical, and psychological services afforded to the Ukrainian children. Further, I was provided a detailed report which verified the identities and circumstances of these 8 individuals. The U.S. government confirmed the facts contained within this document are accurate. It is important to note the original verification report was jointly prepared by the Commissioner of the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine for Human Rights and Office of the Russian Presidential Commissioner for Children's Rights. As First Lady, this is an important initiative for me. It is built on shared purpose and lasting impact. My ongoing mission is twofold: to optimize a transparent, free-flow exchange of health-related information surrounding all children who have fell victim to this war, and to facilitate the regular reunification of children with their families until each individual returns home. Additionally, I have raised concerns regarding those who were minors at the time they were displaced by the war, but have since reached adulthood and currently reside in Russia. Given the dangers of traversing this war-torn region, their safe return requires coordinated assistance. Accordingly, Russia has agreed to rejoin the individuals who have turned 18 within a short period of time. Again, this remains an ongoing effort. Plans are already underway to reunify more children in the immediate future. I hope peace will come soon. It can begin with our children. Thank you.
Madam First Lady, are you speaking with President Putin?
Madam President, will you be joining the President in the Middle East?
A phenomenal statement from our First Lady. She truly is the greatest First Lady we have had in this country. When she speaks, it speaks with authority. And to have this open channel now between President Putin and with the First Lady, all ultimately leading to an extra apparatus for peace as Poland now assisting Ukraine as it's reeling from Russia's attacks on Ukrainian energy. We know that NATO purchasing Tomahawk missiles from the United States as a result of Vladimir Putin going back on his word from August 15th, someone who has played games with the American president and has played games with the international community clearly as claiming to want peace, but someone who's also said he would have never invaded in the first place if President Trump was reelected, because President Trump represents strength, unlike the last administration. So as First Lady Melania Trump announces Russian and Ukrainian children to be reunited with their families in this effort, and God knows the amount of trafficking and hell that they've been through in modern-day slavery that we see around the world, Christian genocide, to these issues that President Trump has helped solve with 7 different conflicts in roughly 8 months, and now number 8 and 9 very well being Israel and Gaza, and ultimately Russia and Ukraine. Tremendous to have the First Lady's voice to speak so clearly on this very issue. As you can see, it pains her. It is something that's near and dear to her heart, and her added dialogue to this I can see only helping in this situation as we move forward. It's 11:11 on the East Coast and 8:11 on the West Coast. Thank you for tuning into Right Side Broadcasting Network. I'm Robert McNeely as we thank Kalshi.com/RSBN. When will Bitcoin hit that 150 mark? 150K. Is it for March, February, January? You can trade on anything on this great site. Will Andrew Cuomo become the next New York City mayor as a Democrat turned independent in a 3-way race with Republican Curtis Sliwa, with the Democrat nominee, who truly is a big government socialist, communist, Mamdani, who he wants to make the public squares for your Saturday farmers market government run. Those are some of the most affordable things that you can find anywhere, let alone New York City itself. So can you see the Big Apple becoming a communist hellhole? Well, you could trade on anything. Kalshi.com. It's sports, it's music, it's culture, it's more. And it's all right there, including who will win the World Series. Will the Los Angeles Dodgers repeat that? Or will my Chicago Cubs come through in a forced Game 5 Saturday night between the Brew Crew in Milwaukee? Kalshi.com/RSBN. Answer questions and trade on anything. If you like what you see here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, it's your go-to rally network. But since January, your most fun, your most watched, your most beloved live desk. Support us right here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, rsbnetwork.com/donate. You can text RSBN to 801-801 or send a check and money order. I like to do that sometimes, do the old school way. 1550 Opelika Road, Suite 6, Box 344. It's the loveliest village on the plains. Auburn, Alabama, 36830. It's 1550 Opelika Road, Suite 6, Box 344, Auburn, Alabama, 36830. In case you missed it, let's replay the First Lady Melania Trump's comments from moments ago.
Good morning. A child's soul knows no borders, no flags. We must foster a future for our children, which is rich with potential, security, and complete with free will. A world where dreams will be realized rather than faded by war. Much has unfolded since President Putin received my letter last August. He responded in writing, signaling a willingness to engage with me directly and outlining details regarding the Ukrainian children residing in Russia. And since then, President Putin and I have had an open channel of communication regarding the welfare of these children. For the past 3 months, both sides have participated in several back-channel meetings and calls, all in good faith. We have agreed to cooperate with each other for the benefit of all people involved in this war. My representative has been working directly with President Putin's team to ensure the safe reunification of children with their families between Russia and Ukraine. In fact, 8 children have been rejoined with their families during the past 24 hours. Each child has lived in turmoil because of the war in Ukraine. 3 were separated from their parents and displaced to the Russian Federation because of frontline fighting. The other 5 were separated from family members across borders because of the conflict, including one young girl who has now been reunited from Ukraine to Russia. I have learned a lot about this matter during the past 3 months. Russia has demonstrated a willingness to disclose objective and detailed information reflective for the current situation. The Russian Federation provided biographies and photographs of each child involved in this week's reunification, along with an overview of the social, medical, and psychological services afforded to the Ukrainian children. Further, I was provided a detailed report which verified the identities and circumstances of these 8 individuals. The US government confirmed the facts contained within this document are accurate. It is important to note the original verification report was jointly prepared by the Commissioner of the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine for Human Rights and Office of the Russian Presidential Commissioner for Children's Rights. As First Lady, this is an important initiative for me. It is built on shared purpose and lasting impact. My ongoing mission is twofold: to optimize a transparent, free-flow exchange of health-related information surrounding all children who have fell victim to this war, and to facilitate the regular reunification of children with their families until each individual returns home. Additionally, I have raised concerns regarding those who were minors at the time they were displaced by the war, but have since reached adulthood and currently reside in Russia. Given the dangers of traversing this war-torn region, their safe return requires coordinated assistance. Accordingly, Russia has agreed to rejoin the individuals who have turned 18 within a short period of time. Again, This remains an ongoing effort. Plans are already underway to reunify more children in the immediate future. I hope peace will come soon. It can begin with our children. Thank you.
Madam First Lady, are you speaking with President Putin?
Madam President, will you be joining the President in the Middle East?
Peace can come through the hearts of our children. A good message, a grand message, in fact, from our First Lady, Melania Trump, who is putting the full weight of her office and her voice, a strong one at that, for the cause of peace, especially for Ukraine's and Russia's children. A sad moment this past 3 or so years of this war that should come to an end as soon as possible. Thank you for joining us this morning, as so much breaking news happening over the course of this last week, and a historic moment being on the front row of history for potential lasting peace in the Middle East, something worked on from the Abraham Accords until this moment, even dating back to the Camp David Accords during the Carter administration between Israel and Egypt. Nothing like this has ever been seen, where Arab and moderate Muslim countries and those who historically were at odds with Israel coming together to really find a path forward. And God willing, those hostages come home. That's all I'll be praying for this weekend. We'll have some afternoon coverage as well today, but stick with us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network for, again, unbridled access to your 45th and 47th president, your 50th vice president, your first lady, your second lady, and the 119th Congress, currently still under a week and a half of this Chuck Schumer shutdown. We'll bring you all breaking updates, so stick with us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. In the meantime, we will bid you adieu as we approach noon o'clock, and afternoon for the East Coast. Still a very good morning out there. Thank God it's Friday to our West Coast friends. I'm Robert McNeely. For all of my colleagues here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, thank you for joining us on your go-to live desk as the First Lady makes this important announcement regarding Russian and Ukrainian children to be reunited with families. The cause for peace stronger than ever. In case I don't see you, may you have a God-blessed weekend. Stick with those you love. Enjoy some college football, some pro football, but always keep making America great again. We'll see you soon.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed, so join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from the Diamond and Silk Chit Chat live show. Look, don't forget to check me out right here on RSBN Network. Be sure to watch the show on Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. Yes, it's imperative that you do so, okay? I look to see y'all soon. Bye-bye.
Tired of being told no by your doctor, your pharmacy, or worse, your insurance company? You're not alone. Millions of Americans are waking up to a broken healthcare system. That's why more and more people are turning to All Family Pharmacy. We believe in medical freedom. We deliver the prescription and the medication, all from licensed U.S. doctors and pharmacists, from ivermectin and trusted antibiotics to maintenance medications, even NAD+, the revolutionary anti-aging supplement. Use code RSBN10 at checkout for 10% off your first